Welcome to another episode of the magazine. Today we have someone who's got a lot of historical facts about Fairhaven, and I'd like to welcome to our show, Hoppy Hobson. Welcome, Hoppy.
Thank you.
So why don't we start by telling us something about yourself, your personal history, where you grew up, and how you came to be here in Fairhaven.
I came to Fairhaven at 5 years old, the second grade of East Fairhaven School. I went there until seventh grade. I lived at Benton's Greenhouse, which is Bourne Knolls in the front. And I had a lot of friends, the Alfreys, the Kuchers, the Florents. Across the street from my house was Benoit's gas station. This is going back in the 40s. Alfreys had a farm across the street. Up the street was a chicken house, and on the corner of Whedon Road. The car wash now was a pumpkin place. They used to sell pumpkins on Halloween. And if you went up the road a ways, Mike's Restaurant was one was the chicken house on Whedon Road, and the other one was the chicken coop or something like that. And I think Lobo's owned it.
Okay.
And that was at Mike's Restaurant. That was the name of it then. And then we had the Cape Way Cafe was the bar room. I mean, I could go through bar rooms all night because in Fairhaven, we had some real good fisherman bars and neighborhood bars. We had the Cap Log, we had the Prairie Cafe, we had the Harpoon Lounge, we had the one on Sconneck Neck. And so anyways, getting back to my childhood, we lived there until I was 10. And at 10 years old, we moved to, used to be a supermarket, Little Bay Supermarket, which is where the liquor store is on the neck.
Okay. Yeah.
And down the road there was 5 houses. I lived there, Bobby Crabb lived there, and Mr. Dias and his son lived there. And I lived there with my mother, father, and 2 sisters and my brother. And I had an uncle who was handicapped, Uncle Freddie, and we all took turns taking care of him in our family. We went from my mother to my uncle to my mother. And basically, I can tell you about the Poor Farm the Poor Farm is where Stop and Shop is.
Okay.
That was the Poor Farm. They used to have horses there. And then the river went through and there was a bridge you had to go over to get to Sconneck Neck.
Oh, wow.
So that takes care of East Fairhaven. I had a lot of friends there, Popeye and Alfreys, Langevin, and that was a good place to grow up, both places.
Both places, yeah. Sounds like it. Good memories there.
Right.
So you've had a few careers in your life. Tell us something about your careers.
Well, my first job was a paper route from Sconneck Neck and Mac Soda Bar to the Stop and Shop.
Okay.
And then I used to work at Rogers Dairy in Fairhaven in high school. I used to clean up at Mac Soda Bar in the morning before school. I wasn't going to graduate from high school, but my mother went there and told him if he graduated, he'd be in the Navy in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
If he didn't graduate, he'd be coming back. So she convinced them to let me graduate. So I went into the Navy. I served on destroyers out of South Carolina and Norfolk. I was on the USS Johnston, D-821, and I was on the USS Norfolk, DL1. We made some cruises to the Mediterranean, the Atlantic. I wasn't in wartime.
Yep.
That was between the Cuban crisis and Vietnam. So I get out of the Navy. I worked at Fairhaven Lumber for a short period of time, and they were on Spring Street. Okay. And then I worked at Park Motors. And after Park Motors, I met my wife, and her father worked at Revere Copper and Brass. So I spent 8 years there, and it was funny because I met a lot of good people there. Donald Dompierre and Tony Freights and Blanchette's, and it seemed like half of Fairhaven worked there. So I spent 8 years there, and one day Tony Freites was taking a test to be a policeman. I said to him, "Oh, I'd like to be a fireman." So I take the fire test and I flunk it by one question. So they convinced me to take a police exam. Really wanted to be a fireman. But so I took the police exam and passed it by one question. It's kind of funny. And then I got on the police department. I went through, let's see, Chief Oliveira, Chief Raphael, Chief Barcelos, Chief Foster, Chief Silver, and Chief Gabby Souza. So I spent, I think it was 28 years there. And that was a real fun job. And I met a lot of good people. And it was just fun to go to work in them days.
Yes. Yeah.
The most important thing is I met a lot of good friends there. And I'm still friends with a lot of them. And then when I retired, I was running Hoppy's Landing at the time. You want to get that in over?
Sure.
Well, Hoppy's Landing was kind of funny how I got it. I was running it. First of all, this person named Joe Masuda, he owned it, and he sold it to Ben Restucci and his son Joel. And Ben Restucci owned car dealerships throughout Wilmington, up that way. And he owned a lot of land on West Island. And he owned a lot of lots. So I'm running it for him, and there's only like one path that goes into the back here, a junky boat ramp. There wasn't even a dock here. So he says to me, he's going to sell it. And I says, well, I'd like to buy it, but I don't have the money. I says, but I'll talk to a couple of friends. He said, yeah, get a couple of friends and you can go partners. So I did all that. And that didn't work out at all because then the wives got involved and it wasn't going to work. So I told Mr. Restucci that I wouldn't be able to buy this place because I didn't have the money. But I just bought a truck. So he says to me, well, why don't you buy it? So I says, well, I don't have that kind of money. He wanted like $150,000 for it at the time. I told him that I would go to the bank to get a loan, but the bank wouldn't let you borrow money on vacant property.
Oh.
So I went back and told him that I wasn't going to buy it. He says, well, if you give me, I think it was $7,000 down, and he sold it to me for $100,000. And he said he would take the loan at 9%. Mm-hmm. So he took the loan. We passed papers. This place, we had a lot of fun here. I mean, there was a lot of history. I kept cleaning it up, getting more boats here. In them days, it was mostly wooden boats. So other boatyards that wanted to get rid of wooden boats, I would take them, and every 4th of July, I would strip them, the brass, the copper, and the steel. And then 4th of July, we would have a big party here. And every 4th of July, we'd have a party, and we'd burn 3 or 4 boats. I mean, one year we had like a 40-footer, a 36-footer, a 24-footer, one on top of the other.
Must have been a big celebration.
Right. We did it 4th of July, and we did it on Labor Day.
Okay.
And we would have a DJ. Johnny Tate would be here with his band. And he's still playing. That's the funny part. He played at the Bayside last week, I heard. Somebody was telling me. I grew up with Johnny Tate on Sconneck. He lived down on Bayview Street, and I lived down Diocese. And in the old days, let's see, where the Bayside is now was a hardware store.
Oh.
Across the street, that was a dry cleaner. This was in the 50s. Okay. Then it became a pharmacy. Okay. Jackson's Variety was Magnets. And then it was Paul Simmons. Where the store is on the neck, that was, let's see, That was where the original Bayside was.
Oh, okay.
And West Island, I don't know. I wasn't really involved with West Island in them days. I was just in my teens. So that's basically the history on what I can tell you about what I know.
Yep, that's great. So then you decided that you wanted to keep Hoppy's Landing beautiful, and sold it to the town.
Well, I can tell you the story on how it went to the town. I think his name was Bill Roth.
Bill Roth. Mm-hmm.
All right. He was the town planner. And this place was getting too big for me. I had too many boats here. I had too many people. And I was afraid that I was going to be sued or something. Somebody was going to get hurt. I got junky dock, junky piers. So he approached me as to buy it. So I said, let me think about it. I really didn't want to sell it, but I knew it was time. So he told me to get it appraised, and he said he would get it appraised, and he worked with the state and everything, and my appraisal come in at like 700,000. His come in at 5. So we put some deed restrictions in, and I agreed to the 5.
Mm-hmm.
Because I really wanted the town to own it and preserve it the way it is.
Right.
I think they can make it better here. I think a lot of things like a little band shelter and have a concert or something in the summertime, or there's other activities that would be good for here. So that's basically my life.
Yeah.
I got lucky. I happened to marry a Polish girl.
Yeah.
So my wife, Jacqueline, I call her Saint Jacqueline because she's married to me, the poor woman. And she worked for the phone company. And I'm jumping around here a little bit.
That's okay. Yeah.
All my relatives work for the phone company. My cousins, my aunts, my uncles, my wife. And my parents wanted me to work for the phone company, but I didn't want to work for the phone company, so I kept flunking the test. So they couldn't hire me. So anyways, I'm on the police department. My wife's working for the phone company. And then we had a chance to adopt my daughter, which is Holly. I mean, my daughter works for the veterans in New Bedford. And my wife retired from the phone company because when you adopted a child in them days, you had to quit your job. So she quit her job. But it worked out good because we got a beautiful daughter. And actually, my daughter is in the process of adopting 2 kids right now. So they've been taken care of for 5 years. So everybody around me is great. I'm a little out there myself, but my daughter and my wife are real nice people. And then...
Well, you've made a great impact on Fairhaven, though, Hoppy. I mean, even with the having everyone in Fairhaven can enjoy Hoppy's Landing and come out and see go for a walk around Hoppy's Landing, and just you've made a strong impact in the town.
Well, that's why I sold it to the town, because I really wanted this to be preserved, because I had offers from 2 different people that wanted to make it private.
Sure.
Actually, across the street was Earl's Marina, and he was interested in buying it, but he didn't want to pull the trigger and buy it, and that's how I happened to get into it. It was kind of funny, because when I bought it, I never had the land surveyed, so I owned it for like 5 years, and then I had the town made me survey it, because I had a couple of things I wanted to do, like this building and stuff, and they said, well, you got to show us what you own. So I get it surveyed, and I gained like 80 feet between me and that seafood building. And I never even knew I owned it, because I had a private loan. He
Right.
told me where the line was.
Right.
And that seafood building over there, that was built for a lobster pound. And lobsters in them days weren't shipped, but when they started shipping them, they would fly them all over the country, and they could hold 20,000 pounds of lobsters in that building.
Wow.
That building's got a lot of history to it too, because Carlos Raphael used to cut fish there, and everybody knows who he is, right? And that's how he started over there. And then the Parker brothers took it over, and they were filleting fish. They were a family from Fairhaven. There was a lot of hardworking people in Fairhaven. So
what would you say is probably your fondest memory of Hoppy's Landing here?
the 4th of July bonfires, because when we had a bonfire, I mean, we either had a clam boil or a cookout, right? And
Brought everyone together.
everybody came. I mean, there were hundreds of people. One time, Steve Foster comes, and he says, "Hoppy, there's too many people at your party here." And the police chief's here. I think the fire chief was here. I mean, there were so many people. He says, "We got to clear this out a little bit." I said, "Look, I only invited 50 people. I don't know where these other 150 people come, but if you want to throw them out, go ahead." I think he got in his cruiser, he went back.
That's great. That's a good memory. It's a good memory. And what are any future plans? Do you have any future plans?
I'm going to be 82.
That's good.
My wife had a little battle with cancer, and she's recovered, and she's doing good. And I was pretty successful buying and selling real estate on West Island. I mean, some of these houses I was buying before the water and the sewer came, even after it came, you could buy a house on West Island of 60,000 to 100. Right now, West Island is I don't think you can find a house under 400,000.
Probably not.
I don't even. If it's as big as this building, it's almost 400,000.
Right.
I mean, what's going on with West Island is crazy, and most of them from out of town want to buy it.
Yeah.
People just pound West Island because they don't want to go to P-Town, they don't want to go to Hyannis, they don't want to go over the bridges. So this is one of the hottest real estate places going.
Yeah, they've discovered the gem of Fairhaven.
It's crazy, and it's all kind of different people. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I mean, when I first started buying houses here, I mean, half the people on West Island, let's put it this way, I would say 50% of the people on West Island in them days lived year round.
Okay.
The other 50, they were just summer people. I would say over there, it's got to be 80% now, year round. And it's a beautiful place.
Yes, it is. It really is.
I mean, I like Sconneck because I grew up there. But West Island is one way on and one way off. It's just like Sconneck Road. You're going to rob something on Sconneck? Guess what? There's only one way off.
That's right. And
that's the same for West Island. I know we're jumping around here because, you know, I might get a little confused here because...
No, you're doing great.
My age.
I think people really are going to appreciate this show, especially to hear some of those places that used to be. And some people who are watching, you know, would never have known that. So I really do appreciate your wealth of knowledge for here and for Sconneck and West Island. And just want to thank you very much for being a part of this show.
Can I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
When I was a policeman, the poor farm was a bowling alley after. When it was the bowling alley...
I remember the bowling alley.
Okay. I'm a policeman at the time, and in them days, if you had a problem with any kid or anything that wasn't real serious, you know, you'd tell them, "What do you want to... You want to kick in the ass, or you want me to bring you home?" And most of them would say, "Just kick me in the ass." They didn't want to deal with their mothers, you know. And the age on drinking went to 18. And the bowling alley was one of the hottest places for bowling, and they had the bar room there. And then they started bringing in rock bands. And now the drinking age is 18. So you know what that created. That was a major problem. So they used to hire 2 policemen every night, me and Sergeant Shepard.
Okay.
And we'd have to walk around the building. And there was a lot of, activity there. That's when pot was a lot coming out just then. And so Sergeant Shepard would go on the roof, and we'd see the kids out there smoking in their cars. And we'd knock on the window, they'd give us the pot of the, right?
Yeah.
We'd tell them to leave, and we'd spread it out so we wouldn't have to arrest them.
Yeah.
But nowadays, you can't really do that anymore.
I think one of the people, our producer, David Photo, was one of those rock bands that played at the bowling alley.
Actually, Kenny Wood had a son, Brian.
Yes.
Brian lives on Wilbur's Point. Now, Brian had a rock band. Whatever you call it. It was mostly rock and roll in them days. And he played there, and he drew quite a crowd. And that was the place to go for these kids that had just turned 18. I mean, there was hundreds of them.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, they didn't do nothing really wrong, but it was their first experience drinking.
Yeah. Place to hang out and have fun.
Yeah. And then, I don't know, all the policemen used to go to the Paddock Pub, which is, what's the name of it now? Alden Road? Pasta House.
Oh, yeah, yes. Pasta House, yeah.
Dick
Yep.
Laurent built that.
Okay.
So that was the place to go after work. So and they had bands there. Actually, had a band there. Dickie Claflin played in it.
Oh, wow.
Nice. So that's all I know about that. I can tell you a few things about being a policeman, though.
Yeah?
When I first became a policeman, it was Mr. Raphael. And he was a very strict and fair person. So me and Donald Duart started the police union, and he didn't like that. But after the negotiations, we'd be not on good terms.
Oh, yeah.
But the next morning, I got to say this for him. He would always say, "Good morning, Bob. Nice to see you," even though we argued that night.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we started the union, and then it went from there. I mean, when I first got on the police department, I think it was like 75% Portuguese people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think Dickie Claflin and me and Ralph Tate, we were the only people that wasn't really Portuguese.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and we had a walking beat, 6 to 10, set up Fairhaven every night, and we had a walking beat up North Fairhaven, 6 to 10 every night.
Nice.
So that worked out good.
I'm sure that was comforting for the neighbors, too, at the time.
The funny part was, when you first started, you didn't even have to go to school. You didn't go to the police academy and then start. You just started.
Wow.
My first job on the police department was working at the feast of North Fairhaven, doing traffic.
Yeah.
Right? That's where I had a good friend lived on the corner, was Omar Blanchette. They called him Sonny.
Yep. Sonny Blanchette.
Right.
Yep.
You talk about like names like Sonny Blanchette and that. Well, there was a lot of names in Fairhaven also. We had names like Joe Badluck, Mark the Farmer, Little John. I mean, I could go Frank the Machinist, Pete Town Pete, Tony Tuna. I mean, everybody had a nickname. Popeye. I mean, I could go on and on. Little Russell, Bread. Everybody had a nickname in them days. So I don't know what else to tell you.
Well,
I mean,
just before we wrap up, how did you get the nickname Hoppy?
my last name was Hobson.
Okay, so they called you Hoppy.
Right?
Hobson.
So
Okay.
everybody called me Hoppy. I was Hoppy South. My brother was Hoppy East because he lived in East Fairhaven.
Okay.
And my father's name was Hobby.
Okay.
And my grandfather's first name, nobody could ever guess it. He was from England and he moved here and worked in the mills. His first name was Handel Hobson.
Handel Hobson. Okay.
So we're talking about strange names, right? So that's about all I can tell you. I mean, I love Fairhaven. I love the people in Fairhaven. I can talk about politics for about 2 minutes if you want.
No, that's okay.
Just real quick,
Okay.
right? I wanted a street tied in Fairhaven,
Yeah.
and I wanted some street tied on West Island. And I used to go to like every meeting to these different boards,
Yep. Yep.
and they kind of promised you that they would do it, but they never did it. So a bell went off in my head and said, you got to join these people to beat them. So I ran for the Board of Public Works. In the beginning, I wasn't doing too good, but after they figured me out and I figured them out, I got my street tied.
Mhm.
I got streets on West Island fixed and tied. I got a few friends, helped them get jobs there. And I had a fun thing. The only thing I can say about politics was that I made more enemies being on the Board of Public Works for 10 years than I did 28 years on the police department.
Wow.
Because when you vote against somebody on the Board of Public Works, as a selectman like you, they kind of hold it against you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, I never understood that. I never understood that you could argue after a meeting, during a meeting, and still be friends.
Yes.
That's one of the hardest things in politics is, I can argue with you,
Yep.
we could still be friends.
Exactly. Exactly.
But I had a hard time believing that. You want to talk about politics a little bit more? If you wanted to work for Mass Maritime, 3rd District Court, Mass Maritime, 3rd District Court, the Steamship Authority, and there was one other, lottery.
Okay.
Biffy McLean was the best politician that ever came to this area in Fairhaven. Because if you needed a job and you was a halfway decent person, he would help you get a job. And that included them 4 places.
Mhm.
In the beginning, you looked at the lottery, half the guys were from North Fairhaven and Fairhaven, right? I mean, this is going back, but I'd like
Well,
to
he
give
cared
him.
about. Yeah, he cared
I'd
about
like
the
to give him
citizens.
credit for all he's done. And it's kind of funny. I saw him down Union Wharf about 2 weeks ago, or a month,
Oh wow. Okay.
and he looked good.
Yeah.
And he remembered me. He said, I remember you. He says, I helped you get a lobster license. He says, yeah, me and little John. He says, yeah. I says, well, I remember you too. I says, but when I first started as a policeman, you was a part-time policeman. He says, you're right.
See that? Good memories. Good relationships. Good stories, Hoppy. I can't thank you enough for not only your service to our country, your service to Fairhaven, and all that you do. And I'm so glad that you and your family decided to bring you here to Fairhaven and grow this beautiful town.
Okay, thank you. And I hope you don't have to cut too much of this.
You're good. Thank you, Hoppy.
Okay.